Hello, my dear listeners. My name is Kishore Ganesh, and in episode 13 of the Vocal About Visuals podcast, I wanted to share my thoughts on a legend of late night, Conan O'Brien, as he bids adieu to the late night talk show format after 28 years. Imagine that, 28 years. Wow. I started watching reruns of US late night talk shows in my late teens, early 20s, and my first exposure to them was through The Tonight Show with Jay Leno. And my first reaction to this format was, whoa, here is a show where A-list stars, the who's who of Hollywood, are appearing on a nightly basis on a TV talk show. I mean, there was no, I have to be enigmatic and preserve this air of mystery around me to keep my brand value high situation going on with them. And this was surprising to me because that's how Indian A-list celebs behaved at that time. These were the days before YouTube, and the normal big TV channels couldn't get interviews from the stars because either the stars didn't think too highly of TV or the channels themselves didn't pursue them for such interviews because it was just not part of their programming strategy. And whatever talk shows were there used to have celebrities themselves host a very short 10 to 15 episode season when they had the free time, and then they would go away for years together. So this American format was totally new and exciting because it seemed to be part of regular American TV programming, and hence the celebs themselves were not these beings that were far removed from TV and the daily lives of the audience. What's more, for me personally, the best part of the show was not even the celeb interviews, and it surely wasn't the musical act at the end of the episode. It was the 10 to 15 minute comedy monologue that the host did at the beginning of every episode, which was the main reason that I tuned in. If there were other comedy segments in an episode, well, that was even better because that meant the show could focus more on comedy than on carefully rehearsed stories of boring celebs. I say that because after you watch the talk shows for a couple of years, it is not the allure of celebs that keeps you coming back for more. It is the overall entertainment that you get from the product. And the most vital component of the talk show was, of course, the comedy. Now, the general format of an American late night talk show, and mind you, this is extremely general, consists of a comedy monologue, a comedy segment, the celebrity guest interview, and finally a musical act or another stand-up act. And all the great late night talk show hosts followed the same pattern: Jay Leno, Letterman, Jimmy Kimmel, and then later Stephen Colbert and Jimmy Fallon. The talk show then is akin to the same dish made unique by each talk show host, who do so by adding their own special spice mix to it. Each talk show is essentially an interpretation of an established format. And the person who I believe had the most unique take on the talk show format is Mr. Conan O'Brien. To continue with the dish analogy, Conan's talk show, even if it had the same ingredients as a conventional talk show, comedy monologue, guests, comedy segments, musical acts, a sidekick even, seemed it was almost like he took all these ingredients and turned them on their head so that the end product looked the same, but there was something different about its essence. You knew that right from the first time you watched a full episode of Conan's show. A big part of Conan's humor was the self-deprecation, and there is a certain authenticity to it as well. I mean, Letterman used to do a lot of self-deprecating humor, but in his case, you almost felt that he didn't really like himself, or anyone else for that matter. With almost all the prominent talk show hosts, you knew you were dealing with the head honcho, the alpha of that show, no question about it. But with Conan, yes, he is the alpha, but it never seemed or felt like it. The other thing with Conan is that he is the most natural talk show host out there. Everyone else seemed to be a stand-up comedian or a comedic actor who happened to stumble onto this talk show host job. Not Conan. He seemed to be the best fit for the job. The ease with which he connects with not just his celebrity guests, but with common folk as well, which is evident his wildly popular Conan Without Borders segments, is testament to this talent of his. Then we have his quality of 100% committing to entertaining the audience by playing a silly fool. The silly fool characters he plays are both victims and aggressors in his comedy sketches, and they may not always be lovable, but more often than not, they are as brilliant as they are funny. His remote sketches are legendary in their own right and are among the most watched videos on YouTube. I believe that his self-deprecating humor, the commitment to play the fool, his people skills, and his overall authenticity is the reason why Conan, though in his 50s, seems a lot younger than his talk show peers. All the things I've mentioned make him seem youthful, fresh, and contemporary, and this is probably why he has consistently found fans who are in the coveted millennial and Gen Z demographic compared to his peers. And one important thing to note is that thanks to his fan base consuming content on a variety of platforms, Conan's brand has over the years become platform agnostic. You have Conan on TV, YouTube, podcasts, on streaming platforms via his travel shows, his big social media presence, and I'm sure he will be on whatever new form of media will come about in the next 5 to 10 years. And one of the articles I read mentioned that he touches close to 50 million people a day through all these platforms, and that's tremendous for someone who has been in the business for 28 years and happens to be in his 50s. But the nature of his audience is also why I think Conan couldn't grow bigger on traditional American networks, and that is probably why he is choosing to call it a day on the talk show format after close to 3 decades. Now, I don't watch TV that often for me to miss the whole 1 hour talk show format, and this has been the case for close to a decade now. And I think I belong to the same demography that constitutes most of Conan's fan base / audience. We consume the content that Conan puts out through YouTube and Spotify and Instagram, and I think that the content he puts out on these platforms is surely going to continue to grow and evolve and become something that is extremely unique. It is however sad that Conan will not be a fixture of the late night talk show programming going forward. The Conan brand is poised to grow and flourish via the plethora of platforms that I've mentioned above, but if you ask me, I want Conan to do all the crazy things he's doing on all these platforms and still have a talk show. Let's say on Fox, why not? That said, if Conan himself doesn't feel like he needs to be a part of traditional network TV and the late night talk show space, then I'm not gonna feel too bad because, hey, I'm gonna watch him on YouTube and listen to him on Spotify anyway. So good luck, Mr. O'Brien. I can't wait to see what the whole variety series on HBO Max is going to be. That and all the other crazy, wacky content I'm sure you will come up with now that you're not confined to the format. And I do hope all those legendary bits and recurring characters like Jordan Schlansky, Clueless Gamer, the remotes where Conan goes driving with celebs, and the bits he does with his assistant Sona, which mind you, have gotten incorporated into his other comedic venture, the Conan Needs a Friend podcast, all make an appearance again, either on his variety show or in some completely new format in the future. Once again, my name is Kishore Ganesh. This is the Vocal About Visuals podcast, and thank you, my dear listeners, for your time and for listening.